Africa, ça fait danser. Oh Africa, ça fait rêver, ça fait vibrer, ça fait danser. Oh Africa, Bariula Bagaya Bizorona, Bakawala Yewala Balilela, La Guinée, le Congo, Sénégal, le Bénin, Yaoundé, oh, bien les beaux pays. Africa, 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 Africa,
Dumelang, Munibwanji, Asante Sana, and yeah, welcome to it. It's another edition of our own version of Africa's top brands, and it's Brand Africa 100, and this is the Botswana chapter, and we are stationed right here in the heart of Southern Africa. My name is Lusika Seboni, and I will be your host for today. We're live from Footprints Advertising, an affiliation of the Brand Leadership Group in South Africa. I'm joined here by last year's winner and a real stalwart and somebody who's made it onto Brand Africa's top 100. He's actually been on that list, and it's Botswana's very own Bans Maplanka. Ola Bani. Nice one, man. Yes, and I'm also joined by my president from the Botswana Basketball Association, but she's not here wearing that hat. She's done it all and has a real understanding for brands, but she's also co-host for Yarona FM's Buffet Breakfast. Her name is Brunello Bo Hardy. Welcome. So it's Africa Day today. Hello, Africa. Tell me how you're doing. We were here around the same time last year, and I was joined by our very own Honorable Bay, Elem Mebo Kenowendo, and we're revealing Botswana's very best. I think brands are important. We need to be able to envision our brands as not only brands that resonate with us as Botswana, but we want to build great Botswana brands that even resonate across the African continent. And this is why we're here today. So yes, I'll be handing on over to Karen from Kanta and Tebi Kalafeng from Johannesburg, so that we can speak about the methodology, and then we'll get through to the results, and then I'll be engaging with yourself right after this. Dumela!
Hello there. Hi. Yes, I'm Karen Deshen, and I'm joining you today from Kantar, and we are the insights agency that has prepared the Brand Africa 100 on behalf of the Brand Leadership Group. Yes, it's a very exciting day for us, as it's our passion as an insights agency that works across Africa to really understand people and to help our clients to build strong brands. So today is exciting as many of our clients are waiting to see how have they fared in this year's 100 index. So as many of you will know, and as Lusika has already indicated, Brand Africa is now becoming one of the events on the African brand calendar for the year. It's the 11th year that we're running the study on the continent, and this year it's bigger than ever. We've got increased sample sizes, we've got more coverage, and it really is an exciting year for the program. So let's go straight on to the coverage and see where did we actually do our research this year. This year, we've got more countries than ever, as I've said. It's 28 countries that we've covered. We started West Africa, then we moved to East Africa, Southern Africa, North Africa, and Central Africa. 28 countries, and there they are. Do have a look at your countries represented, and I'm sure you'll be excited to see the brands coming through there when it's time for your presentation too. Today, we've got 7 presentations covering East to West, and we'll finish up tonight in Côte d'Ivoire with the final findings. So how do we go about doing the Brand Africa 100 Index? Well, first of all, it's a huge thanks to Geopol, who does the majority of the data collection for the program using their mobile platform. We then get all that data from Geopol and we code it, we classify it, and we put it together in a way, then weight it to get to the Brand Africa 100 index. So let's understand a little bit more about that data collection, and a really big thanks to Geopol, as I said, to Caitlin and her team in Kenya and across the continent that have led the data collection program. And next slide. Geopol has huge coverage in Africa. As you can see, the whole continent almost is colored in. We've got 5 million people that we can access on this platform to do the research, which is quite incredible coverage. And we know that mobile is so close to people's hearts and minds, and it's a great way to do insights generation in our continent. So we have 2 key ways that we do the collection. The first is SMS, and that's what we use for people that don't have a smartphone. And it's very easy. We just ask them, what are your favorite brands? And they can respond to the data via SMS. And for those that do have smartphones, we use the mobile web method. So the questions get delivered to them in a link, and they can fill it in from there. And mobile is fantastic for data collection because we have wonderful, wonderful mobile coverage now in Africa. 747 million people in Africa have got access to a SIM card. And this is enabling them to think, buy, do, get jobs, connect with one another, and of course, do research and tell them about the brands that they love. What we're seeing now is we've got about 49% mobile penetration and a high percentage of people with a smartphone. So yes, a great way to collect the surveys. If you want to find more about Geopol, you can have a look at Geopol surveys on Twitter or visit their website. So the survey covers a couple of key areas, and the first one is the most important one, which gives us the Brand Africa 100 index, and that is which are the brands that you admire the most. Now here we ask people to give us at least 3 different brands that they admire, and they can come from any category. It could be a mobile phone, it could be a brand of alcohol, it could be a bank, it could be a telephone, whatever the brand is that you admire the most in your country is what we pick up on our survey. We then move specifically to understand the brands that are resonating, that actually originate in Africa. So we ask people, what is your most admired brand that's made in Africa, originates here? We also get for 3 answers there per person. We then move to financial services, which is such an important part of driving brand development in our country and letting money move around and enabling purchase of the brands and services that we want. And we finished up by looking at what is the most admired media brand. And this could be a radio station, a television station, a newspaper, online. It's all covered in the survey. And the media channels are the way that information travels and brands get built, is through our media partners. And we're really thankful to them for the contribution they make to brand building in Africa. And in 2021, given that it's been such a crazy year for all of us, who would have thought we'd have our guests in studio today wearing masks? I don't think any of us would have. And we added a question, which was, which brand do you think has been most effective in helping during these COVID times? And we've got an interesting collection of brands that are coming through as having been wonderfully supportive during this period. So out of those 3 brands per question, we end up with something like 80,000 different brand mentions. It's a crazy amount of data. We classify, we code, we put it all together into something that makes sense. We picked up about 3,500 individual brand mentions this year. And once we've sorted out all the brands and classified them correctly, we then need to move into the weighting process. I'm just waiting for the slide. One of the things we are really hopeful for in Africa is a huge improvement in internet connection across our continent. We've already seen that developing in leaps and bounds, but we want to see it growing even further. So as I said, once we've got all those the brands coded, we then weight the data. So we look at the population size, the sample size, and we developed a weighted average index for the brands, and that's where the Brand 100 comes from. And in order to qualify to actually get onto that top 100 list, you need to be recalled in at least one other country than your home country. So it is ultimately a pan-African index. We also do present individual country data, and we've got 7 countries being presented today, and the next countries will be presented over the next couple of weeks. So I thought I would begin by just giving a little bit of an insight into the kind of brands that we're seeing coming through in the index, and then I'm going to hand over to Tebe, who will actually give us the findings. So COVID and the whole year of 2020 impacted all our lives. It was an opportunity for us to stop, slow down, step back, and in some cases for brands, it had a favorable impact, and in other cases, not so favorable impact on brand love and brand connection. So what we have seen is that any product that's got some kind of germ-fighting abilities, cleansing properties, has benefited during this period. People have become far more conscious about the importance of cleansing and staying safe and staying healthy, and these brands have benefited. We still see that sports has a huge impact on the brands which are loved and sit firmly in the hearts and minds of Africans. And even though sport was put on hold, sport was still there, even be it via reruns, still very, very influential on the brands we love. Just a shout out for the brands that have managed to survive through the really tough times affecting brands that are sold in bars and restaurants, where often products were no longer available for sale as people weren't allowed to go out. But we still see that it doesn't take just 1 year to affect those brands. They still live on, and people have very strong bonds with those brands. And lastly, what we've seen from a sort of fashion perspective, and we know that fashion, color, energy in Africa is really important. We've seen that people move from more formal wear to informal wear as they spend more time at home and they don't go out as much. So what I can say is that the strong brands, despite that interruption of 2020, they live on in people's minds. So let's have a look at the kind of things people are looking for. So firstly, in every country, we see the importance of African fabric. The different names for African fabric come through in each country, be it Katanga, be it wax, be whatever it is that people call the fabric in their country. This comes through and people love these things. They think of it as a brand. We haven't actually included that in the index, but they are definitely believed to be brands. People are looking for products that are durable and have great design. And in particular, mobile phones are a huge, they occupy a huge emotional space in our hearts across the continent. What has been accelerated in 2020 and 2021 has been online purchase. People that may have been afraid or reluctant to interact online are buying produce, are ordering food, and the brands that are delivering that effectively have grown. We also see how important mobile phones are and how mobile phones have really embraced the financial system and are giving people a more inclusive way of banking and moving their money around the continent. I've already said this, but the brands that sponsor football are delivering in the continent. They are really resonating with people, in particular the ones that get behind our sporting stars like Tusker are coming through very strongly in our index, and you can see how important these emotional links are for people with brands. A brand like Guinness, who has been, it's a global brand, but it's been really active in understanding people, getting beneath the insights of what people want and what they think about in Africa, is coming through as believed to be an African brand, even though it actually originated in that little island to the north of us. Right, so the other thing we see coming through in the index is quite a lot of mobile handsets. Of course, people would love the likes of a brand like Apple, but something like Telco is a Chinese giant who has really got to understand what people want in Africa, what their price points are, how to bring products and services that are affordable and accessible to people. And from an automotive perspective, we see some local players that are building great, rugged, affordable, resilient products that are made for African roads and are bringing the value that people look for. Brands like Innocent, like Katanga are coming through in their markets. And we are always pleased to see the local conglomerates coming through on our index. Dangote is a brand that people feel very proud of in Africa. It's grown from its home country of Nigeria into many other countries. And we also see products like Azam coming through from Tanzania, and they are accelerating across the continent by bringing their products and services to market elsewhere. So well done to you. And we must recognize the brands that have been here in Africa for many, many years. Coca-Cola has been here distributing their products, meeting the needs of the continent for over 90 years. And of course, we see them in the top tier of our brand index. I've already said it, how important the handset is, but the handset is nothing without the mobile provider. And it's wonderful to see a brand like MTN, which has been mentioned in 15 countries as being one of the most admired brands. And that's the fabric of our society, it's the connections we have. And MTN and other mobile providers are really there to support brand building in Africa and to connect us with one another. So what we also pick up in our index is that when we ask people to tell us the brands that they admire that are African, it's actually many international brands that get mentioned. This is because the way people are delivering services, they're thinking locally, even though they're acting and distributing in a more globally compliant way. And it's that local insight and local connection that helps them to be more successful. So all I can say is continue to do that. People believe you are African. They love you for what you do, and just keep staying connected with what the local trends are, and you will continue to be successful. Global brands like Nike have really found those sports stars and local designers that people really relate to, and this has helped them to accelerate their presence in the market. Nike getting behind Custer, behind Kenyan runners, behind influencers like Starboy, and of course designers, and really embracing the color and the flavor of Africa in the way that they bring product to market in Africa. Nike really does know how to connect on a more real and local level. So well done to you, Nike. So at this point, I think you're all waiting in anticipation to know, so who is in the top 100? And I think there's no better person than the founder and chairman of Brand Africa, Mr. Tebie Kalafeng, a man who is absolutely passionate about building brands in Africa, to share the findings of this year's Brand Africa 100 2021. So over to you, Tebie.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, Botswana, Dumelang. Good morning, Africa. It's good morning, afternoon. I have noticed it's 10 to 12 where I am. I'm in Ivory Coast. I'm sure it's trying to look at Karen, you put together an interesting way for me to figure out the time. But thank you for those insights, Karen. They really lay a beautiful foundation for the brands that we're going to see come through today. I stole this map, by the way, I'll tell you, but I gave it credit to Mesach Gaba. It's about how the whole continent comes together. And this is how the continent comes together. Only 13% of the brands that Africans admire are African. Yes, it's the same number as last year. We have held forth, we have held steady, as we have with everything else in life, because COVID brought everything to a halt. And interestingly enough, we ended up with 13%, which is the same number as we did last year as well. And all those brands are coming from Nigeria, from South Africa, from Kenya, and from Ethiopia, who dominate the 13 brands in the top list. So here are the brands that are top of the list in the continent. Number 3, Samsung. Number 2, Adidas. Number 1, Nike. The top 10 brands in the continent. And Nike, Adidas, Samsung, Coca-Cola, Apple, Techno, Puma. Gucci has been there forever. All the 10 years we've been around, Gucci has been there. Toyota's been as well, and Zara. Then we also ask another important question. What is the most admired African brand? Because we're really key about having to understand the African brands. Because when you just speak generally, we don't get to see as many African brands. So we ask, what is the most admired African brand? When we say that, Dangote tops the list. When we don't say that, MTN tops the list. So an interesting interplay between the two giants of the continent, one from telecoms and one is an industrial giant, the two strongest brands in the continent. In media, CNN, BBC has been number 1 for the last 10 years until DSTV knocked it out. Why did DSTV knock it out? DSTV knocked it out because we are streaming live, we're at home, and DSTV is bringing all the channels to us. And that's why we're seeing the list as it is. DSTV as the number 1 most admired African media brand. From banking, Absa, FNB, GT Bank again, back. GT Bank investing in technology, investing in digital, banking on the future, and not constrained by its legacy and where it comes from. These are the top 10 brands, banking brands from the continent. You can see dominated by Nigeria and South Africa, as has been Whether you read about it, you know those are the big banks. Whether you watch CNN, those are the big banks, and the research bears it as well. So this year, as Karen said, we wanted to also know how did COVID impact everybody. But in this question, we wanted to know which are those brands that have been really, really helpful during the COVID era. WHO, World Health Organization, very, very omnipresent, top of the list. MTN, top of the African list. So these are two of the biggest brands, the biggest telecommunication brand. But we know why MTN is in the list. MTN contributed 9 million vaccines across the continent. And that's why a brand like that comes so strong, because it contributed to all the countries where they do business. The categories which we are familiar with: consumers, Nestle; electronics, Samsung; automobile, Toyota. So you look across luxury, Gucci; apparel, Zara. So these are the key categories that are dominating year in and year out. And Karen said earlier about the question about what is the brand that everybody mistakes for an African brand: Coke, Nike, Techno, Nestle. But everybody knows it's from America. Everybody knows Nike is Michael Jordan. Well, not interestingly, is when you speak to the majority of the people, they think there's a Nike here somewhere, which comes from here. Because these brands are the Vliscos, the Samsungs, have really done a tremendous job of building a good relationship with the consumers here in the continent. Then when you look at the category toppers, brands that top the categories: Nike, Ethiopian Air. What an incredible story. Went from 0 to number 51 on the basis of the work that they've done around the continent, around the world, moving vaccines, moving PPEs around the continent. 23 of the top 20, out of the 28 countries, the number one brand in those countries, not African. We got work cut out for us. So we need to build more brands in our continent, so that the brands that people love in the continent, in the countries, are African brands. This week, at the end of the week, you will see the African Business Report is coming out. And when it comes out, this is the top 100 brands that we are publishing today that you have the privilege of getting to know. So let's talk a little bit about Botswana. Let's talk about the brands in Botswana. Number 3, Puma. Most admired brands in Botswana. Number 2, Adidas. Number 3, again, number 1 rather, again, Olkasi. Olkasi continues to confound, to excite, to really tell the story of the upstart African brands which are really going against the established brands. I mean, I know Olkasi for so many years. I'm so proud to see them really as a resilient made in Botswana brand, made in Africa brand. Congratulations to Olkasi, and giving it to Puma, to Adidas, and to all the other brands in the country. Most admired African brand, Chobis. Number 1, Olkasi. Olkasi is really doing it and giving it, really giving it to the competitors in the local market. You can see the top list again, the top 10 brands in the continent, in Botswana. They're either from South Africa or they're from Botswana. Makes sense because the proximity of the two countries and the relationships over the years, and the fact that we're in and out of our country all the time. What's so beautiful though is to see that some of these brands are small brands that are locally made. Most admired local media brands, BTV, Tuma, and Yarona. Yarona has done an amazing job. Obviously, Yarona has got a pulse on the pulse of the listener of what's happening in the country. Number 1 radio station, so it's a local radio station. I'm sure there is going to be no questions about that as to who leads the charts when it comes to media. You can look at some of the media there that you are very, very familiar with in the country, all the way down to Nehi and many others in the country. The most admired local financial brand, BIFM, Letshego, Botswana Life. I think Botswana Life was again top of the list last year. continues to stamp its authority in the country as the go-to financial services brand that looks after Botswana's life. You can see the brands. You're familiar with many of the brands in the top 10. And now comes to the brands that have been admired throughout COVID. Orange, Botswana, Choppies. Choppies is one of those amazing retail stores. Every time I'm in Botswana, I've seen one. I know they listed in South Africa a while ago, but they delisted. But just the mere audacity of listing, the mere audacity of having shops beyond the borders shows you the vision of the company, the vision of they believe that they are part of Botswana. And Chop is one of those brands at the top of the list, seem to have been done really well during COVID. I'm sure you know the stories, you know what they've done, you know what they've contributed to Botswana. Most admired brands per region: Adidas. In Southern Africa, Adidas tops the list of the most admired brands. So now you've got the list, and I want to hand it over to Lusika, who may have a couple of questions for us.
That is.
Lusika?
This is. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. We are really excited to be seeing these results, and the more so that I'm sitting here with the most admired African brand, that is Mr. Banzima Blanc. And also for Yarona FM, who've come a long way, because they've always come, especially in the media space, before The Voice and even Duma FM. I think some of the questions that may have been there, really, Tebe, you've mentioned the fact that we've kind of remained in the same sort of place that we've been because of COVID. Have we been affected as Botswana as well?
Well, I think we've all been affected. All the brands have been affected. All the brands have all the countries. I mean, we pretty much we are all at the reset. So we're all at starting, quote unquote, starting from scratch again. So it's just coincidental, or it doesn't, not unsurprising that even when it comes to our choices have not changed that much. But also it speaks to the strength of these brands.
I've seen a certain shift, especially within the commercial banking space, where we have our big bank. Big bank here would be First National Bank. And we see Bank Gaborone topping even ABSA as a top, renowned local brand or admired brand here locally. Why do you think that could be?
Lusika, you probably can tell me a little bit more about what is doing well. But certainly, when I see anything called Bank Botswana, I'm already beginning to think, oh, it's one of our banks. It is probably contributing to the community, to the country. What the thing that we know about banks, though, is that banks are not necessarily loved generally. So when a bank is loved, it means that it's probably loved because one, it's doing great service, one, it is efficient, and one, it has got the right products at the right prices. So, and I suspect that will be the case with Bank Botswana, and I'll be quite keen to hear from you.
Yeah, Bank Gaborone is in Botswana. Bank of Botswana is something else. But yeah, that is very.
Bank Gaborone, yes.
And then Mascom is appearing under financial services, but they're widely known as the Telco.
You know what's interesting about the telcos, whether it's Safaricom, they've created M-Pesa, whether it's MTN with their Momo, MTN Money, all the financial services brand, the mobile brands are understanding that they are more than just telephony. They're also about connecting. They're also about transacting. So that's why you're beginning to see all these, and all these brands have got a money product.
Yeah, I think a final question to you. What do we need to do locally to be able to assist in this space as brand practitioners to make sure that the brands that we're representing and that are representing themselves could one day find themselves on Africa or Brand Africa's top 100 list?
You know, somebody said it earlier, and I think I want to repeat what they've said, is we need to learn from the global brands. What the global brands have done well, they've done a couple of things well. One is they invest in their brands. Second, they tell great stories that people can relate to. And third and most important, they really build a relationship with the consumers, and they are responsive to the consumer. So you need to be relevant. You need to tell good stories, and you need to invest in your brand. The challenge that you see with a lot of local brands is they take a lot of shortcuts. They forget that building a brand is like a bird builds a nest, one strand at a time. So you take your time to build a great brand. It takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of love. And that's how you build a great brand. That's what we can learn from that, not try and rush and we launch tomorrow and now you start telling people you're a great brand. Yes, it does happen sometimes. It does happen that discovery is less than 20 years, for example. It does happen that Google is less than 15 years. It does happen that Facebook is less than 15 years. But what they do, those brands, those are multi-billion-dollar brands. They build scale very quickly. They've got private investors to put in a lot of money in order to be able to build a scale and to tell good stories.
I think I need an opportunity to be able to speak to my panel here, especially the most admired brand. Is Okasi appearing on the top 100 list for Africa?
No, Okasi is on the Africa list, yes. I think it's on the Africa list. It's an amazing brand, Okasi. It's done very well in its time. And I've always, my story with Okasi is having seen them as a national brand for the national team at one stage in its history. That's how you build confidence. Because the one thing we need confidence in our own brands. We need to invest in them and we need to support them.
And there's a new campaign now that they've been running, and I need to ask you this, Barney, because it's very important. Here comes COVID, and then while within this COVID era, you found new ways to be able to adapt and stay relevant within the market. And I know we can't see it because the stomach is there, but here's this campaign. It's reading on his T-shirt, United for BW Sports, and I've seen from His Excellency the President to ministers and influencers, everybody wants to get their hands on this particular T-shirt as we root behind Nigel Amos and Isaac Makwala as they're getting ready for the Olympics. And this was quite genius. And how what comes to your head when you think about these adaptation methods?
Is that okay?
That's funny.
Okay. Yeah, it's basically being alive. Basically being alive and present in the moments like COVID. How would we as brands survive in this kind of space? And big brands, when they in times of need, really show empathy, like Teba just said, so that we relate to the end user, we stay relevant in their minds. In difficult times, these are the guys who are there for us. So we came up with this initiative to bring everyone around sport, of course, and create a sports fund that's going to help. I mean, here in Botswana, we haven't kicked the ball for a year now plus. You can imagine.
Even for Sunday soccer.
For Sunday soccer, for guys.
The wives are happy.
Yeah. And so we needed to come up with a campaign that's really going to look out for sport, create a fund for sport, and have these guys get back to play. So this campaign was really behind that, showing their empathy and really being there for people.
I'm sure you also to get your hands on a United for BW Sport. You already have it. You already have one. Yeah. So how do you feel when you wear a shirt like this?
National pride. I mean, this is to events on the ground. They've done well. Big up.
I think we are lost to your stream there, Karen and Tebe. Is there anything that you wanted to add to this stream? We're supposed to be having new men join us as well on this about new men's story. New men Ramatokwan, Tsepa Ramatokwan. You know, I met the young man because the mom makes magical syrup for nobody drinks. You understand that Monday in around BBS. And that's why I met the young man. He was always driven, and I think the entrepreneurship spirit was being built from home. 10 o'clock and so on and so forth. He went and started his own catering company, and that went too well. And now we're speaking about a serial businessman who, you know, went really big into events. And events were only done by the companies that were affiliated to Johannesburg. And for native events, they really set a benchmark, which was an international standard for our local market.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you something I admire about Nuba. I wish he was here. When he came up with Nuba, this was a spin-off the COVID period where deliveries became a thing, and he tapped well, and now he's got like a regular customer base for delivering drinks, which was what he didn't do before, did he?
Adult drinks. Let me tell you even further from that, because when the events were shut down, that means he can't lease out this furniture, he can't set up these tents. He managed to sell some, and then Abara got combi. So he bought these combis, and there was a time where everybody was on lockdown, but essential services workers needed to get to places. So he registered his company as an essential service provider, managed to transport the people. So now it's like, then between 8 and 4 o'clock, what do I do, you know, to prepare to take these people back to their places of abode? And then that's when Nuba came in. They were there, right? So no, what I drink, see, COVID in coping mechanism inside. And he decided to get into that space. And then he has a digital marketing agency. It's called 52 Sundays, and a lot of the young upcoming budding gurus, because digital as traditional media practitioners had to relearn what you know, the service that we're providing to our customers out there. But yeah, I think all in all, it's been absolutely lovely. There are 3 brands that have been mentioned there, and we need to give them a round of applause for best adaptation to COVID. Orange, he said orange, maybe that's how you say it in French. And so Orange Botswana, big up to yourself. Botswana, I was just reaching out to Agatha this morning and telling her, listen, I think there might be a special surprise. But you know, we will be engaging with them further, Tsitsi, from the voice, just to be able to find out more from them, what it is that they were doing, you know, in order to be able to adapt and become a meaningful brand, especially during COVID. And then top of the list, Choppies. I think they were there for the people, because when you think of the first 2 lockdowns, like, it makes sense. The only thing that you could think about was just, you know, Nuba and eating. The amount of weight we put on during that lockdown. But yeah, so we'll be back again next year, same time, same place, or different place, with new partners, as we unpack and we unveil really what the trends are, and you know, continue loving your brands, hugging them and harnessing them, because really you need to build equity in these, because we need to view brands as our brothers and sisters and parents, as living, breathing human beings. That's how you really affect the bottom line. So
I really hope, for my part, coming from the media end, I saw that 87%, 13% ratio. I hope this time next year that would have changed.
I think so. I think we are proud as a nation. I was listening to some of the comments on the COVID-19 task force, and the young man was saying that one thing I love about COVID-19. But yeah, one of the things that came out was the fact that the young man said that he loved
His
the color of his skin, and you will find more and more Botswana wanting to get their hands on United for VW Sports. We're getting geared up and ready for the Olympics. So make sure that because it's also for a good cause. Maybe you can end this theory on that note to be able to let them know that the #1 top brand, how can they get their hands on it?
Yes, it's available at all JD Sports outlets across Botswana. $400. All the proceeds from this initiative go towards the sports fund. We want to kickstart basketball, netball, football, and all other sporting codes. While we're also supporting Team Botswana to Tokyo 2020.
Yes, that's a wonderful initiative. So live from Footprints Advertising, leave your mark. We'll be back again next year. Bye bye, Africa. Tell me how you're doing.
Salute. Thank you, Africa.
That's a big brand there. Oh, Numan is here. Wow. How's it log out?
Just after you signed up.
You're just about to. Okay, maybe make space and then let's have a chat.
I can make it.
Okay. Please come through, my brother. Kenzi go Satang Kause. Yeah. No, what do you have? Okay, so we're back live. Okay, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much, the user. This is the young man I was speaking about. Again, a new man, and I told them the whole story of how we met, the entrepreneurial skills. Then I was you were there packaging our food. And then you grew up. You actually tried your hand at catering at one time yourself. And he's a serial entrepreneur. And one of the things that I had to recognize was a young buck coming under brand. But more importantly as well, he has been recognized as one of the, as a nominee for Forbes under 30, top 30, under 30.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. So not only is he a young man, but he's doing the other type of all of it. And we want to ask you that question to say, what goes on through your head to be able to think these things? I've spoken about 52 Sundays. I've spoken about how you bought the essential services workers, and then in between, what can I do? Because this statement, I don't drop a number to adult beverages.
Yeah. When you start, I mean, it's been quite a journey. I think, like you said, my foundation is one of the most important things. My mother taught me survival skills. I think I was, more than anything, I became more street smart than classroom, being smart in the classroom, which I was, yes. And having dropped out of university twice, it was more of a choice of trying to pursue my calling in the business industry. I've experienced a lot at a very early age. I remember, my circle of friends when we were growing up, we ended up touching this earlier than I anticipated because I was considered to be more too serious about life. And it's been a journey where toughest decisions have to be made. And one thing I learned is resilience and ability to survive through the toughest time. From point to point, pillar to pillar, as a businessman, you have to make toughest decisions. And for me, I think it has become more of something that I enjoy doing. I think where there's a challenge is where actually I enjoy it better. It's like, going to the gym. They say until you feel the pain, you're actually doing something that's going to bring results. So it's been phenomenal. It's been challenging, but you never stop. You never stop. You just need to have a heart of a lion. It's tough, and it gets tougher as you go.
Yeah, it's just asking oneself, what's next on Numan's agenda? What can we expect? Yeah, it's just to grow what is already there. I think a lot of young men and women look up to you. So representing, but yeah, thank you for just making the time to be here. We want to see your name on the top 10 list for Botswana with one of the companies that that you're working with, because you actually know how to position yourself in that.
Yeah. No, the experience is there. One of the things I've noticed is, there's the ceiling to success, especially as a self-made entrepreneur in Botswana, is too close. So the only way to do is be local but think global. So until you start producing solutions for the outer market, then you realize that the world is your oyster. But if you're thinking Botswana, hey, there's going to be a lot of cry days and cold nights for you. So the idea now is to really try to penetrate the outside markets as possible. I've been talking to a lot of people outside the country, and for me also, it's just trying to prove it to a young entrepreneur, a young person out there, that it's possible. You can be from Botswana and be able to be an exporter.
Great stuff. I need to grab something, and I need to show my brother something here, because he's the one who's here. We need to just present this to him. It's a most admired brand in Botswana and most admired African brand in Botswana. So congratulations to yourself. Oh, I need to show you something else as well. So this is one of the things that I think we have had. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. No, this is us signing out. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to The Voice Online for being a really great partner with us today. And good night. We'll see you again next year.
I was going to ask that part.
Right.
No, you're so casual. I was going to ask if these guys are going to eat from there. I'm like, this cannot be.